Last night delivered one of the most unpredictable NBA drafts in recent memory. So the Magic throwing a curveball with Paolo Banchero in the top spot. And that threw the entire draft off its axis. So surprised it's coming left and right from there. Keegan Murray over Jaden Ivey, AJ Griffin falling out of the lottery. And the Knicks not picking in the first round like at all. They did not end the night with a first round pick because they traded away like all of them that they were acquiring. And then they got rid of the Kemba Walker contract. I mean, nothing went as expected on Thursday night. It's good to see everybody. Welcome to The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. I'm Emerson Lotzia. We got best bets for the weekend ahead at the Travelers. Pierce continues to crush Jeff in NASCAR DFS. It's embarrassing. And what to do on the diamond tonight. As for what to do on the ice, we have a panel for that. We got Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final arriving this evening, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. NHL.com's Pete Jensen, DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich. They are here. Gentlemen, Colorado is on the verge of hoisting Lord Stanley and has the two-time defending champs looking frustrated and worn down. Darcy Kemper has showed up between the pipes for the Avs. We know Andrei Vasilevsky here has a reputation of being fantastic in elimination games. Which one do you want to play tonight in DFS, Jeff?
Neither, really, to be honest. If I was going to play one, it would actually be Kemper. Vasilevsky's history is his history. He's a great goalie. It ain't happened this year. I'm sorry. He hasn't been the same goalie on the road this year. He was bad against the Rangers in the first couple road games as well. He was bad against Colorado in the first couple road games. You mentioned Tampa Bay just getting worn down. It's just a fantastic run they've had, but it's the end of the road. I mean, you can see it. This is a team that's played basically an extra season of hockey over the last 2 or 3 years. And this is a team that's just been dominated at times by Colorado, who hasn't even been at full strength for this series. Now they've got Kadri back. He's had an extra day of rest, and they're back at home. I want nothing to do with Andrei Vasilevsky from a showdown perspective. I think if you're going anywhere up top, you need to look at the Colorado studs in this game, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon. I would even go down the lineup and think about a Nichushkin or potentially Nazem Kadri as well.
Pete, biggest test of Vasilevsky's career. He needs to be perfect, but maybe you aren't feeling either goalie like Jeff because you're expecting another 7 or 8 goal output between the two teams.
Well, when facing elimination, Vasilevsky hasn't had to face elimination very much over the past 3 postseason, obviously, but he's 3-0, .951 save percentage, and 1 shutout in those games with the season on the line for Tampa Bay. So if I had to pick one, I would go with him. One thing I wanted to mention about Colorado, really the only weak point you could say about the whole roster and the whole postseason run is that they're about to win the Stanley Cup, or at least they're 1 win away right now with an .899 save percentage. We look at fantasy, anything below 910, 915 as being mediocre, anything under 900 as being poor. So you could say that they're getting underwhelming goaltending and they're about to win the Stanley Cup. Something seems a little off about that. So I would fade Colorado's goaltending. Wouldn't be surprised if Tampa extends this series with everything on the line here, just given their track record.
I think the other thing about Kemper, too, is Colorado just hasn't been allowing that many shots. So I don't know what the actual upside is with Kemper. I mean, you saw in game 2, he posted a shutout, but it was a 16-save shutout. It still didn't get you that many points. So I just don't know what the upside with Kemper is, even though obviously I think Colorado's finishing the series tonight.
Yeah, Pete, Kemper is actually $300 more than Vasilevsky in the captain spot tonight. What do you want to do for that position in showdown contest? We're talking 1.5 times the points, but you do receive, or 1.5 times the salary, but you do receive 1.5 times the points in return.
Yeah, it's funny. You look at the big picture of this Cup Final series, and we're always talking about, the big names like Vasilevsky and Makar, McKinnon, Kucherov, and players like that. But quietly, the top performer offensively is Mikko Rantanen. I feel like he's not going to get the Conn Smythe love that he deserves if they do win the Cup. But Mikko Rantanen is on an 8-game playoff point streak with 14 points in the span. He's got 8 assists, historic pace as a distributor through 4 Stanley Cup final games. So want to show him some love by making him the captain in my mock lineup. I feel like he deserves a lot more recognition. Fantasy rankings, he's always in the top 10, 15. Past couple of years, gets overshadowed by his line mate McKinnon. But when you look at what he's done, even with his versatility at different points in the season, having to play some center when guys were injured, His impact speaks volumes about the player he is.
All right, Jeff, who are you showing some love for in the captain spot?
Yeah, I love that call. I mean, Rantanen very much just unfortunately is like maybe the third best player on his team, like in terms of skaters, which isn't an insult. It's just that the other two are so good. I'm going to go with Nate McKinnon here. I feel like McKinnon, he's got 22 shots in this series. He's got 1 goal. Like, it just feels like McKinnon has, he's at home. He's getting a ton of shots every night. And if he gets one early, I just feel like the floodgates are going to open here. So I really like McKinnon to go back for him for one more shot at a big game. And the other thing with the Colorado forwards here, and this is why I really think that you need to roster a Colorado stud in your captain spot today. If this game does, if it's like 3-2 late, Tampa's pulling their goalie with like 5 minutes left. Like, Colorado's going to have a ton of shots at the empty net. At least in my opinion, they will. And obviously McKinnon's going to be on the ice a ton for that. You know, Cale Makar is going to be on the ice a ton for that situation too. But I think the forwards always have a little bit better chance just to grab those empty net goals. So give me McKinnon here. I like the Rantanen call as well. If you're going for value, you know, Nikushkin is another player who's played really well this series, but I think you got to go with one of the top 3 plays from Colorado. And I'll stick my hat on the McKinnon side. I just feel like before this series ends, and I think it is going to end tonight, you know, McKinnon feels like a guy who needs to pot a couple goals in a game. Okay,
yeah, $1,200 more than Makar. He's at the top of the board there in terms of captain salaries. And that 1 goal, kind of a lucky bounce, his only goal in the series through 4 games, Jeff. But who else needs to be in your lineup? You want to stack someone with McKinnon there? Is it going to be another high-priced player, another forward there for the Avs?
So, like, maybe the one Tampa player that I really feel is a very good play. And I just feel like you should – like, I think your lineup should be dominated by Colorado players tonight. I think I've made that obvious already. But Victor Hedman at 8,400 in the flex, you should just play him. He's going to play like 27 minutes in this game. You know he's going to be out there a ton. End of the game if they're down, he's going to be out there. End of the game if they're up, he's going to be out there. He's got 10 shots on goal over his last 2 games. He's averaging 2.5 shots on goal over his last 2 games. He's played 27 minutes, averaged 27 minutes over his last 2 games. He's going to see a ton of minutes again. And he's been a little bit more aggressive on the offensive side. Obviously, Tampa being down. He's going to do the same thing tonight, in my opinion. So I think Victor Hedman is the one Tampa Bay player I can really say, like, you should be building around. And I think it also comes down to salary. I mean, you know, he's been very productive. Salary really hasn't gone up at all. He was 8,200 last game. He's only 84 in the flex now. That's the one player that I really feel like you should just be getting in your lineup. Obviously, we know we want to stack McKinnon with like his wingers or whatever like that. But I think on the other side of the game, the Tampa player that you really need to pay up for, it really isn't the forwards. The forwards really haven't been that good for Tampa in this series. You know, Kucherov, Stamkos, they've kind of been shut down. But Hedman has really picked it up. He's going to play a ton. You need to get him in your daily fantasy lineup. All
right, Pete, Jeff says that your lineups need to be dominated by Avs players, but I believe you've already referenced, like, you believe the Lightning strike back tonight. So are you going to go with some other Tampa guys here as well?
I think it's going to be a close game. I don't know that they're necessarily going to do it, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they did. And if they do it, it's going to come down to some of their depth guys, because the guys at the top can certainly match what Colorado does. Even though they're getting dominated in the puck possession a little bit, the Lightning strike quickly at different points in the clutch. So one guy I'm looking at is Nick Paul. He's come up clutch many times for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if you're thinking like me and Jeff are, where it sounds like we're on the same page about getting McKinnon in, whether he's your captain or not, Rantanen we both like, Victor Hedman we both like. Hedman has 10 points in 11 road games this postseason, by the way. But Nick Paul had the 2 goals in Game 7, one of those few games that the Lightning were facing elimination. He's got 2 goals in 4 games on 8 shots in this series in the Cup final. He's been a big game player ever since they acquired him at the trade deadline. So I love what Nick Paul's cooking. I don't think Nick Paul's going to go down without a fight here for the Lightning.
I mean, Pete, Nick Paul, I mean, he's $6,000 too. I mean, that's kind of like a value play in a way. Is there anybody else you like, maybe around that price range or even cheaper?
Definitely. In addition to Paul, I love what I've seen from Bowen Byram this postseason. And we saw how close he came to being the overtime hero in Game 4, right? He hit the crossbar on one of those grade A scoring chances. The Avalanche had a bunch of them in that overtime period before Kadri scored the overtime winner. So Bowen Byram, one of the best possession players in the whole league this postseason as a rookie defenseman who has a recent injury history. So my goodness, I hope this player stays healthy in the years to come because his upside is enormous. And Colorado's dominated the shot attempts differential in the series, like I mentioned, plus 75 shot attempts differential through the 4 games. And Byram is a huge part of that. He's plus 126 in shot attempts. That's 6th best in the whole NHL this postseason, again, as a rookie defenseman. So super important to what the Avs are doing depth-wise, and I think he's due to score his first goal of the postseason. He actually he's tied for the most points among rookies this whole postseason combined.
Hey, Jeff, who's a cheaper guy you'd like to bring some value to lineups tonight?
Yeah, no, like that Byron call. I mean, it's almost unfair that Colorado has him. I mean, he's playing he played 20 minutes in the last game, and he's again he's playing behind 2 other defensemen in Taves and Makar, who are still just super young. So super unfair. But again, I'm gonna go to the Colorado side. I think a guy like Andrew Cogliano, is really nice at the mid price. I mean, you're looking for mid price punts. Obviously, I like captaining Nate McKinnon and getting exposure to the Colorado studs, but you need some salary saver here. Cogliano is going to be out there for 10 plus minutes. He's an important role player for the Avalanche, and I think the main thing about him is he's got some clutch genes. Like he will absolutely pitch in on the offensive side. He had 2 points in the 7-0 rout. He had a goal in the last game against Colorado, obviously, or against Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. But Cogliano is a player who actually owns the NHL record for consecutive OT winners. He scored OT winners in 3 consecutive games when he was a rookie with the Oilers. So, this kind of situation, it's not going to be foreign to him playing in a game where he can potentially win the Stanley Cup. I think Cogliano, is the mid-price player you should be looking to on this slate. I think Arturi Lehkonen is also a good value play, obviously in a completely different salary range, but another player with good clutch genes. I think you got to take a look at these players. One of them, Lehkonen and Cogliano, wouldn't shock me if they scored a goal tonight.
All right, Pete, tell me what your gut is telling you right now, because Tampa's lost twice in overtime in this series. So really it's not as lopsided maybe as that 3-1 series lead suggests. Can the Lightning extend this? I know you said you believe that they can, but will they?
I don't know that they will, honestly, because Colorado has 39 wins in 50 games this season, regular season and postseason combined at home. So they're a dominant home team. The Lightning, playing all this hockey through the years, is starting to catch up to them. We mentioned the overtime was really lopsided. The possession numbers in the series are really lopsided. Again, plus 75 shot attempts differential at 5-on-5. So ultimately, I think the Avs are hoisting the trophy. That's my pick from the beginning of the series, from the beginning of the preseason, and they have the platform to do it here. So I think there's a little appeal on the Lightning, but I would ultimately say the Avalanche are going to win the series and probably going to do it tonight.
Jeff, you've already said you believe that the series is over tonight and that Lightning, in fact, will not strike twice. Oh.
I mean, wow. Poetic. Your Emmy is in the mail. Look, I from the start of this series, I said I think Colorado is probably going to win this in 6 or less. I think it's going to be a shorter series than people think. I think Colorado will dominate. And we're here at Game 5, and Colorado's up 3-1. Nothing here has shocked me so far. Tampa Bay, look, in 3 of the 4 games, they've had 23 or fewer shots on net. Pete alluded to the domination of Colorado 5-on-5. I know it's taken them a couple overtime wins to get here, but this series hasn't been that close. It really hasn't. I think the only reason that you've seen a couple close games is just because Tampa is just so experienced, and Colorado is their first time in the Stanley Cup, and they're a little bit banged up to start the series, but they've still gotten the job done. Considering how dominant they were, and even really just the first 2 home games, I think that if Colorado jumps out earlier, you're gonna see a pretty significant win here by Colorado. So that's the way I'm looking at this game tonight. Again, that empty net factor too. If Colorado's up a couple late, you could see the lead just stretched, to 3 or 4. So I'm going big Colorado. I think that you take the over on the Colorado goal props and stuff like that as well for betting and the win and the puck line and all that. Give me Colorado to finish it out tonight.
Pete, is the Conn Smythe winner coming from Colorado's side? Based off what our other analysts have said this week, it feels like Makar is a lock there, but I don't know. Maybe like McKinnon can pot like a Hattie tonight and lock this thing up.
That's what it's probably going to have to take for McKinnon, Landeskog, or Rantanen to get some real consideration here, because Cale Makar is producing at a historic rate among defensemen, right? Only Paul Coffey and Bobby Orr have better single postseason points per game averages in NHL history, minimum 15 games. And Cale Makar, a lot of people looked at him coming into the series as the favorite, but he's lived up to it, right? 5 points through the first 4 games in the Cup final as a defenseman. You watch this guy. There are only a few other players out there. McKinnon's one of them, and Connor McDavid's the other, with just that blinding speed. But to do it as a defenseman and also be responsible on his own end, and what he did last round, containing Connor McDavid and leading the Avalanche to a sweep, that kind of rings true for me. So again, I think Cale Makar as the front runner here entering Game 5.
Jeff, can you see anybody else winning this thing besides Makar if it ends tonight?
No, honestly, McKinnon, maybe if he scores he has to score 5 goals. I'm not being facetious. He just alluded to the thing that makes this a lock for Makar. It's not just the offense. He shut down Stamkos and Kucherov in this series. He is doing that. The Colorado top pair is essentially shutting down the Tampa Bay Studs. It's a huge part of this series that I don't think is getting enough recognition. But the other thing about Cale Makar is we're talking about an award, and Cale Makar has the attention of the media right now. And these are humans who are voting on it. Again, not robots. Everybody is in love with this guy, and for very good reason. So Nate McKinnon has done an equally good job of being a two-way player in this playoffs. I think that's another underrated thing. He's been terrific, not just from an offensive standpoint, but it's Makar who's really just been the coming out story. Everyone loves him. And like I said, it's well-deserved. I mean, he is shutting down the top players, or at least helping shut down the top players in the league. So, no, this is Cale Makar's to win right now. Okay. The only way he doesn't win the Conn Smythe is if Colorado loses this game and something drastic happens in the last 3 games. So that's the only route for him not winning. He's minus 600 on the DraftKings Sportsbook right now. Of course he's winning this. I think it's a lock.
All righty, Pete, enjoy the weekend. It was good catching up with you as always. Jeff, hang out though, because we still need to talk some golf bets for the weekend, and also NASCAR, yes, you versus Pierce, in what's been a lopsided season-long battle. But first, let's see whose prices have gone up and down since the last race with a healthy dose of NASCAR price check.
Welcome to the Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the salaries for Nashville. Whose salary jumped up this week? Kyle Larson, $10,600 up to $11,600. If he doesn't win every week, people wonder, oh, what's wrong with Larson? Nothing's wrong with Larson. He looks great. He looked amazing at Nashville last season, winning and leading 264 laps. Kyle Busch, $10,100 up to $11,000, also looking great. He's nearly won every oval race over the last month. Alex Bowman, $7,900 up to $8,700. Not looking as good. This is too much of a price increase. The worst Hendrick driver. He's just not dialed in at the moment. Whose salary dropped this week? Michael McDowell, $7,100 down to $5,700. Too much of a drop. Over the last 8 races, his average finish is 12th. I'll say that again. Over the last 8 races, his average finish is 12th. Cole Custer, $7,000 down to $6,300. Over the 16 races this season, his average finish is 22nd. That's right, Front Row Motorsports is better than SHR. Chase Briscoe, $8,700 down to $8,100. His average finish is 17th. That's with a win and 3 top 5s. When did SHR become Roush? Favorite play of the week, Ryan Blaney, $9,500. Texas and Gateway have some similarities to Nashville. Blaney won the Texas All-Star race, and he had the best car at Gateway. Todd Gilliland, $5,100. The rookie has 5 straight top 25 finishes. He has a top 25 in 11 of the 13 non-plate races this season. All right, guys, check out DK Nation for your DFS information and needs. If you have NASCAR questions, find me on Twitter at @RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
Not only NASCAR questions, but if you have book recommendations or questions about books, Pierce will also answer those. But this just in, folks, the Yankees are good at baseball. Last night, trailing 6-3 and hitless since the first inning, they erupt for 4 runs in the bottom of the 9th, including an Aaron Judge walk-off single on the eve of this arbitration hearing with New York, battling over $4 million today. New York's like, okay, here you can have it. So that sent an Astros jeering crowd of, 44,000 on their feet out of the stadium believing anything is possible. Here to discuss some best DFS and DK sportsbook bets and plays for tonight's 14-game main slate. Let's go. DraftKings contributors Matt Meiselman, Gary and Thorne, Eric Halterman. Good morning to you three. Let's start with some daily fantasy, please. Who's your favorite pitcher to roster on tonight's 14-game main slate, Gare Bear?
Yeah, I'll probably go down to Michael Kopech at 9K. He's had some rough outings recently, but I think you can kind of justify most of them. He's really only had 3 bad starts all season. They've come against the Yankees, the Astros, and the Blue Jays. I don't think anyone's really going to hold those against him. Going up against Baltimore tonight, who have done a really good job of raising the ceiling of their opponent the last couple of weeks. They actually have the 3rd highest strikeout rate in baseball across the last 14 days. So, Kopech, 2.38 ERA, a strikeout rate hovering around 25%. I just think he's a really solid play on this slate. I think you can probably go elsewhere and maybe get a little higher ceiling with a little bit more risk, but I think Kopech is probably the most stable pitcher taking the mound tonight.
Matty, you got a stable pitcher taking the mound tonight you'd like to roster?
I think so. I mean, I'd much rather talk about hitting on this slate. I know we'll get there because the pitching just seems kind of underwhelming, but the key thing I'm waiting for is in San Diego, and specifically for Aaron Nola with a potential matchup with Manny Machado. So Machado's been out for about 4 or 5 games, and if he continues to sit, the matchup just gets so much better for Nola. So I think I like paying up for Aaron Nola either way, but Machado is by far the best hitter on this team. They don't really have a good bench. The lineup they ran out there last night against Ranger Suarez was really just a bad lineup. So I think this Padres offense has been overachieving. Obviously, they don't have Fernando Tatis yet this season. But if Machado sits, I think Nola ends up being by far the best pitcher on the slate.
Eric, who's the top of your pitcher rankings tonight?
I think those two highlighted some of the expensive guys that I'd be looking to go with, and I'd be looking to pair them with my favorite mid-price boring pitcher, and that's Dane Dunning, 7,500. He's got a 4.38 ERA this season. Isn't great, although most of the ERA estimators have him in the high 3s, which again, not exciting, but he's about as solid as it gets. His strikeout rate at 21.2% is a shade below league average, but he's got about a league average walk rate and a very strong ground ball rate, 53.2%. 6th among qualified starters. So he should limit the homers, limit the damage. 2 shaky starts in his last 3 is a worry, but the middle start in that stretch, he threw 6 shutout innings against the Astros. So it's not as if he's in some terrible run of form here. He's facing a Nationals team that ranks 22nd by Team WRC+. So I think it's a good matchup for a completely solid pitcher to pair with one of those more expensive arms.
All right, Matty, you want to talk more offense? Let's do it. Let's move to the batter's box, shall we? Let's go with favorite infield bat tonight.
So we didn't mention the guys that are probably the chalky pitchers, with Jeffrey Springs and Merrill Kelly being cheaper. If you are playing those, you're going to need to differentiate a bit with offense for GPPs. And I think the best place to do that is in the infield. And it's paying all the way up for Trey Turner at shortstop. I think just about everyone is going to be looking to Corey Seager, maybe Tim Anderson, maybe Carlos Correa. Those guys are priced less than Turner by a significant amount. But Trey Turner is just such a fantasy machine. And it's not even that bad of a matchup. He's in Atlanta, which is a good hitter's park. Ian Anderson is a decent pitcher, but he's nothing special. And because of Turner's price, I just think no one's going to play him. So if you are someone that is paying down at pitching for maybe some chalkier guys, playing Turner and maybe even a Dodger stack, I think that's a good way to go.
Eric, who do you want in the infield here, man?
Yeah, count me among those, everyone who's looking at Corey Seager people. At 5,200, I like him a lot here. I've really liked him all season. He's been one of the hitters whose actual numbers have trailed his expected stats by more than almost any other. He's hitting 235, but his expected batting average is 295. I believe those numbers are a little bit miscalibrated this season because the ball's different, but when the gap is 60 points, I think you got to start paying attention. Similarly in slugging, he's slugging 442, but his expected slugging per StatCast, 587. So the way he's making contact, he's been one of the game's best hitters this year, but if you look at his actual results, he's been merely pretty good. I think he's going to continue to look like one of the game's best hitters the rest of the way. And he has recently, hitting 355 with 3 homers in his last 9 games. With the platoon advantage here against Paulo Espino, who has a good ERA, but pretty mediocre peripherals. Doesn't walk people, but that's just about all he does. I think Seeger's going to continue staying hot here.
Gare Bear, who do you like in the infield?
Yeah, I mean, let's just close the loop, right? Let's talk about Tim Anderson. Voth, pretty bad pitcher. I think we all know that. Even if you want to take it back and give yourself a larger sample than just this season, going back to the start of 2020, giving up 2.2 home runs per nine, a 379 WOBA to opposing right-handed bats. He's just an underwhelming opponent. I think we can all agree on that point. Anderson has been hitting since coming off the IL. He's got 5 hits in his first 3 games since coming back. Was obviously hitting very well prior to that. I really think the only concern I would have with using someone like Anderson, aside from maybe ownership, as Matt pointed out, was the White Sox are just absolutely decimated by injuries now. And we saw this play out last night. They just couldn't string hits together and they couldn't score runs. And if Luis Robert is not back in this lineup tonight, I would maybe start reconsidering how much exposure I do want to the White Sox.
Let's go to the outfield, Garion. Who is the best play here in your opinion?
Well, if you do want variance, because as Matt talked about, I think Jeffrey Springs is going to be a popular name for a value pitcher tonight. I like Brian Reynolds. He's $4,300, which is a really, really small price point for a guy with his potential. I mean, just last season, he was starting the All-Star game for the National League, got off to a slow start in 2022, but since May 18th, is hitting .315 with a 266 ISO and a 158 WRC plus. He's basically been the guy we thought he was going to be last year for the past month or so. It's a sample size of about 138 plate appearances. So I think Reynolds is back. He's been one of the best hitters in the National League over the course of the past month. And I think with his price point hovering around 4K, he is just underpriced, especially considering he's a switch hitter. So he'll have the platoon advantage in any number of situations the Tampa Bay Rays plan to put him in tonight.
Okay, Eric, how about you, man?
Let's go to that same price point. Jock Peterson, 4,300 as well. He's the latest Giants veteran hitter success story. He's having basically a breakout season, hitting 271 when his previous career high was just 249. And his expected batting average of 299 says he may even be getting unlucky. He's also hitting the ball harder than ever. 17.9% barrel rate, ranks 6th among hitters with at least 200 plate appearances, one spot below Joey Gallo. So he's hitting the ball as hard as anybody and making more contact than normal. I believe it's going to continue, given those underlying numbers seem to back up his excellent results this season. He'll get the platoon advantage here against Graham Ashcraft. He's got a 3.51 ERA through his first 6 major league starts, but it comes with just a 13.5% strikeout rate. He's not much of a top prospect, only struck out 20% of the batters in 7 AAA starts. I don't think he's anybody we have to be at all scared of here. So I like Peterson to continue his breakout campaign.
Maddie, like, what about some love for Aaron Judge here, dude? Big arbitration case today, too.
I mean, I do think Aaron Judge is the rightful favorite for AL MVP. I don't think it's a good enough match. I mean, you can definitely play him against Justin Verlander. It's not a great spot, though. Actually, my favorite outfielder I'm going to save for value plays, too. So I'll pick someone that is somewhat expensive with Christian Yelich on the Brewers. And I ultimately just don't buy Alek Manoah as a Cy Young candidate as a pitcher. His strikeouts are way down this year. And you could argue, like, yes, he's walking less guys and he's limiting hard contact a little bit, but I don't know that that's that sustainable. And I just think no one's going to play the Brewers. I mean, there are cheaper teams that are facing worse pitchers, and then there are more expensive hitters that I think everyone just knows of, like guys like Judge and maybe Trout and Ohtani that are going to be more popular. I think Yelich could be less than 1% owned on this slate. And Manoah in particular has problems with lefties. I mean, he's a bit of a sidearm pitcher that's always going to create a bit of a platoon split. So Yelich is really good, and I just think sometimes it's as simple as getting a really good player that no one's playing.
All right, obviously on a big slate like this, guys, there's a lot of value to choose from. So who is your top value player, pitcher or hitter, Garion?
I'm going to go to Nolan Gorman, one of many left-handed bats you could play against Kyle Hendricks tonight. His struggles against lefties have been there for about the past half decade, and they've really come to fruition so far in 2022. A 4.15 WOBA, 6.01 slugging percentage to opposing left-handed bats. His expected ERA overall is 5.47 this season. And Gorman, the Cardinals have done a really good job of protecting him against left-handed pitchers. He's taken, I would say, about 90 to 95% of his plate appearances at the major league level against right-handed batters. So you don't really have to dive into the splits too much, but he's got a 141 WRC plus and a 226 isolated power against right-handed pitchers so far this season. He will likely be batting in one of the top 4 spots in the Cardinals lineup tonight. So at $3,700, he checks a lot of boxes.
Eric, does someone check a lot of boxes for you in the value department?
Yeah, let's go with another rookie, Riley Green, just 2,200. Was one of the top prospects in the league over the winter, the Tigers outfielder. Would have debuted on opening day, but then he broke his foot. So we're only just seeing him now. He's played 4 major league games, but he's done everything you want in those 4 games. 899 OPS, more walks than strikeouts. Again, this is a guy who was supposed to be the real deal right away, so I'm willing to buy in. Often we see these top rookies hovering near the minimum price for a few days. You got to jump all over him. It's not going to last for long. This is a guy who could easily be 4,500 in a couple weeks. He'll get the platoon advantage here against Merrill Kelly, who's having a fine season, but under the hood, still nothing special. Just 20.3% strikeout rate. ERA estimator mostly in the low 4s, despite a 3.46 ERA. But again, even against a much better pitcher, you're getting such a discount here with Green that I think you have to be all over it.
Matty, who do you like for value?
I'm going to the Mariners, and I think this is probably my favorite stack tonight. Jesse Winker's $3,300. So some of this lineup is a little overpriced. And I think for that reason, because Winker is not attached to a chalkier stack, people are going to overlook this. He's been underperforming a little bit this year. I think Julio Rodriguez has probably been better than him. But getting a platoon advantage against Michael Lorenzen, who just isn't very good, an Angels bullpen that isn't very good, and then in a hitter's park in LA, like I think all this just sets up really well for Winker. And the price is just so far below his talent level. I think it's probably just because he hasn't had a great year, but he has been hitting more home runs, just hitting better of late. So it's not like we should just assume there's something wrong with him. I think he's just still a really good hitter, and this price, honestly, to me, just doesn't make any sense.
Gary Bear, let's go to the DK Sportsbook. Which player props are you targeting tonight?
As Matt mentioned earlier, Alek Manoah, not really been a strikeout pitcher so far in 2022. Been masked up by his ERA and his overall success, but his strikeout prop is 5.5 tonight. The under is paying out at plus 120. He hasn't gone over 5.5 strikeouts in 6 of his last 8 starts. I don't really see why it's being priced at this way. Even Milwaukee, for a team that strikes out as much as they have this season, they do rank in the upper third of the league in strikeout rate. When you look at the month of June, they actually have the second lowest chase rate and second lowest swinging strike rate of any National League team. So I think Manoah probably ends up with 4 or 5 strikeouts, regardless of how deep he pitches into this game. I'm really in on the under here.
Matty, what are you in on? Which player prop?
So I'm going to pick a player prop on a guy that I don't think most people have heard of. It's Vidal Brujan on the Tampa Bay Rays, and I like him at 10-1 to steal a base tonight. He has 2 steals this year, so he hasn't been getting them, and I think that's why the line is so high. But this is a guy who stole over 150 bases in 3+ seasons in the minor leagues the last 3 years, and he's just not getting on base. He's batting 165 this year with a 210 on base percentage. Sounds like a guy you wouldn't want to back to steal a base, but he was a much better hitter than this in the minors. I don't think he's great or anything, but he's really fast. He should start getting on base more if the luck starts breaking a little more his way. And he's batting up near the top of the lineup more often than not because the Rays are just so injured right now. They lost Manuel Margot to possibly a season-ending knee injury. He's out for a while either way. Brandon Lau is out. Wander Franco's out. If Brujan bats first, which has happened occasionally, this becomes maybe my favorite prop bet of so far this entire season. So I'm keeping an eye out for the batting order. If he's down in the lineup, I still like it. But if he winds up batting first, like this is a guy who should be only like plus 300 to steal a base, not plus 1,000.
Eric, hook me up.
Yeah, I'm looking at Alex Cobb to strike out over 4.5 Cincinnati Reds tonight. It was plus 105. Looks like it just moved to plus 100. He's hit that over in 5 of his 9 starts this year. He's the guy whose surface numbers are the worst compared to what he deserves. I think he's got a 5.62 ERA on the season, but that's about 3 runs above a lot of the ERA estimators here. Striking out 27.2% of opposing batters with a better than average walk and ground ball rate. Only negative here is he only reached 60 pitches in his last start and his first one back from a neck strain. but he should be able to push 75 or 80, and I think that's all he's going to need here to strike out at least 5 reds tonight.
All right, guys, quick on this last one here. Favorite game to target for a run line total or money line bet, Garion?
Going to take the under in Oakland, Kansas City, which is somehow at 9.5. I understand that both these starting pitchers are not great by the expected numbers, but Cole Irvin, ERA under 3 across his last 10 starts, and both of these offenses are just absolutely terrible. If you ever give me the Athletics with an over-under above 8.5, I'm going to take the under pretty much blindly.
Easy E.
You can get plus money on Justin Verlander tonight. Astros plus 110. I don't know if I need to say all that much more. Yes, he's facing the Yankees. Yes, Luis Severino is on the other side. But this is Justin Verlander we're talking about, backed by the Astros lineup. I think you take that plus money whenever you can get it.
Okay, Maddie, bring us home, please.
I'm just going to go right back to targeting Alek Manoah and take the Brewers plus 125. The degree to which I like this will kind of depend on some lineup news. There's one key player that's been banged up on each side, George Springer for the Jays, Willy Adames for the Brewers. So this could move around a bit, but I like the Brewers either way. I think Manoah is still pretty overrated.
Gentlemen, wonderful, wonderful work. We will talk some NASCAR with Jeff and Pierce right after this. All right, we have, it's time to talk NASCAR. We have Jeff Orrick and Pierce Dietrich here, and we're going to have some fun. Now, this is typically when we show the graphic of, your season-long race here and who's leading in the fantasy points department. We all know that is Pierce. He pulled in a lot of points last race, and Jeff, you did not. So we're not going to show the graphic because, according to producer Drew, it is too graphic for our audience because it is so lopsided. So let's go ahead and let's break down some of the best bets in DFS plays.
Yeah, fresh start this week. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, let's
Clean
go.
slate.
We're at Nashville here.
Start of summer.
We're back at Nashville Super Speedway, Pierce. First appearance in the Cup Series, like that was last year. And that was Kyle Larson, a guy who earned you a boatload of points last weekend, or last time out. So he won the first Cup race in Nashville since 1984 last year. He's always a good pick, but how are you looking at him now this week in DFS? Because he's at the top of the board at 11-6.
He's going to be fine. He hasn't been as dominant lately, but there's nothing really wrong with Larson. Obviously, he ran well at Sonoma, but we can throw that out because it's a road course. But in the 5 most recent intermediate track races, he's been really good. He hasn't really been that far off. It's just that his competitors have all stepped it up and had perfect races. So any week now, he'll jump back to the top and be the leader in NASCAR. And this is a really good week to back him. You look at what he did last year at Nashville. He led 88% of the laps. If he's fast in practice, which he should be, qualifies well, starts up near the front, I would expect him to stay out front and lead a bunch of laps. This could definitely be the week where he comes back alive.
Yeah, Jeff, to quote Pierce Dietrich here, he's been quiet lately, but that just means he hasn't won.
Every week we get on here and Pierce tells us how good Kyle Larson is, and then Kyle Larson goes out and does stuff like finishes 15th and gets you 26 points. 12th gets you 34 points. Okay, he had a good Coca-Cola 600, but I mean, it's kind of been like bust season for Kyle Larson fans. It has been. So I'm kind of done with Kyle Larson. I get he's going to be popular this week. It's a course he dominated last year, but I mean, it's just the other people are just seem to be running better. So I think you go down. I think you go down a couple spots to a guy like Ross Chastain. Been very consistent. He's better value. And he ran pretty well at this race, too, last year. So,
all right.
That's my take on Kyle Larson.
Pierce, I have a question about Kevin Harvick. I've been seeing some headlines that he was like chewing out a bunch of his pit crew members. He's got a bunch of new ones now this week. So how does that impact, like how will it impact Harvick? I mean, how does it impact the driver when you bring in a bunch of new guys?
Well, who they need to get rid of is not necessarily the pit crew. It's Kevin Harvick. He's old. He's done with. He's been struggling the last couple of seasons. You can replace the pit crew all you want. He's a bit of the problem as well. But the big question is pit crew and pit speed. It has been kind of the underlying storyline this season. If you have a fast pit crew, you get out front, and it makes all the difference in the world. Before Gateway, I tweeted out that there wasn't going to be any passes on the track, and there would be 5 passes. All of them would happen on pit road because of fast pit crews. That's exactly what happened. No one passed anyone while they were actually racing. All the lead changes happened on pit road. So, yeah, Harvick, it's a big deal. You want to have a fast pit crew. That's how you win races. That's how you get out front. And it's probably going to be the case again at Nashville. This is not an easy track to pass at. So, look at the pit crew data. That's Kyle Busch, who's been the best. And he's got a huge advantage. And I think he'll get out front and lead some laps.
All right, Jeff, do you like Harvick, though, to maybe continue a pretty good run? Looks like a couple top 5s in his last 3 races.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a situation that could definitely go either way. I mean, I'm not like big on a guy who's just replacing everybody. I mean, expecting a whole new crew to come in and just be perfect and all of a sudden get him over the hump. I mean, let's face it, Emerson. Kevin Harvick, he's kind of the Louis Oosthuizen of NASCAR racing.
Yeah.
He finishes like 5th every race. Or, and then you think he's going to win, he's not. So I don't really want to bet on a guy like that. I got enough guys on the golf side like that. I think you get up to a guy like Chris Bell. One thing we've seen in NASCAR this year is just different people winning every week. There's like 12 different winners on the circuit this year. I think Chris Bell is a guy who could potentially get there at some point this season. So I look at Harvick. I mean, I don't know. I guess he's fine. But I don't really like this change personally. And kind of like Pierce alluded to, is he really that good a driver anyways? Like, should you be paying $8,500 for him? I don't know. Daniel Suarez is down there at $7,700 too. I think for DFS, I would rather pay up to Chris Bell or even just go down to some of these other drivers who really have been, like, upside-wise better than Harvick anyways. So that's kind of the way I'm viewing Kevin Harvick. Does seem like he's going to be a popular play, which just makes me want to fade him more on the DFS side.
I mean, Pierce, he's won the Daytona 500 before, right? Which I guess would that be considered like a major in NASCAR, something that Louis has not really done over, at least in the States,
Yeah, the Daytona 500 is kind of a fluky event. That's not really it's
Okay.
more of a prestige thing rather than hey, I'm a good race car driver thing.
Okay, but he's won the Cup Series too, right? Like
I mean, he won 8 races in 2020, so that's a pretty big deal.
All right, so just a really bad comparison by Jeff. I get it. All right, who is a driver priced below Harvick and his $8,500 salary this week that you'd like to maybe save a little bit of cash in lineups, Pierce?
There's a whole slew of them, and to build on what Jeff got right, pointing out that we have a bunch of drivers that have won a bunch of different races. Well, the big reason is because, like I said, it's pit road that is determining a lot of these finishing positions. And if Christopher Bell can win a race, which he's been up front a lot, then not only can those guys win races, but the guys that you would slot in as, he's a 20th place driver, those guys can sneak up and get top 10 finishes. And you've got Kurt Busch, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez. They've all won races that you probably didn't expect. I mean, Suarez led a bunch of laps at Charlotte. The list of these guys, like Michael McDowell has an average finish of 12th over the last 8 races. Justin Haley has been up there. Ricky Stenhouse ran well at this track last season before a poor race at Gateway. He had a streak of 5 top 10s. Bubba Wallace is underrated. There's so much value that you really should take a chance on these guys. And again, it's pit road, pit road, pit road. That can take a guy from an average day to a big DFS day.
Jeff, who do you like someone priced below Harvick?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's numerous drivers you could look to here. Suarez, I think, will probably be popular just because his price just seems coming off a win. It just seems ridiculously low. But I like Stenhouse Jr. Pierce mentioned, he had strong results. If you look, too, when I dived into the data this week, Emerson, Stenhouse Jr. typically does well on these faster tracks. Like, it's the shorter tracks where his results were bad. So I think that Stenhouse Jr. has been pretty productive. He's got like 5 top 10s on the season, and a lot of those top 10s have come on faster tracks. he's run pretty good. He ran pretty good at this track last year. I think, looking to him for a value is really good. I mean, I think you should be looking at him for some placing props too, but would we be surprised if he finished like 5th or something? I'm not sure if he's going to win the race. Pierce could probably speak to that, but I think like looking at him for like a top 5, top 10 finish at 7,100, that's probably going to be my favorite play. But there's even guys further down, absolutely, that are in play. McDowell, Haley. I mean, these are guys we bring up almost every week at this point. But it speaks to the fact of how like sort of stars and scrubby you can get with your lineups, just in general with NASCAR.
All right, let's go favorite DFS play this week. Jeff, do you want to go first or do you want to go second here?
So is this for our contest?
Yeah, so this would technically be the points. So we'll bring back the graphic and the standings if you have a strong performance this week in Nashville.
Okay, so if I have a strong performance.
It's bad right now,
Chastain.
Jeff.
I'm going to go Ross Chastain.
Okay.
I think that Ross Chastain is a driver who's going to win again before this season ends, and I think that this track is going to be really good for Ross Chastain. He's had a top finish here before. Again, I don't really like going up to Kyle Larson. I know everyone's on Kyle Busch this week as well, but I think Chastain is the guy that's just getting a little bit overlooked. He's also a lot cheaper than both those drivers. I'm going to go Chastain for my pick this week.
Pierce, what do you got?
Kyle Busch, #1 pit crew. I expect, you look at Gateway, as I predicted, the race was going to be won on pit road, and Kyle Busch led a ton of laps because he has a fast pit crew. There's also going to be an extended practice time this weekend, and typically the driver that benefits the most from being able to dial in the car during practice is Kyle Busch. And then last but not least, you look at the 5 intermediate track races before Sonoma, Kyle Busch was averaging 26 hog points. That's fast laps and laps led points per race. So you take those 26 points, add them on to 40 position points, you got around 60, 65 points. That should be plenty to keep me ahead of Jeff Ulrich.
I mean, it would take like an absolute miracle for him to catch up to you. Let's go to the DK Sportsbook before you take off here, Pierce. What's a bet you're looking at this week?
You know, I like, Jeff mentioned Stenhouse to get a top 10. The only concern is it just doesn't pay that well. I'll just stick with my DK Nation playbook picks and Chastain over Chase Elliott. Jeff already kind of mentioned what Chastain's been doing, so I don't need to repeat that. I also like Joey Logano over Martin Truex Jr. May not be big on Joey Logano in DFS, but you look at the end of these races, he's always there, and he's closing. He won late at Gateway. He won late at Darlington. And when you're betting head-to-head, you just need them to have the best position on the last lap, and we've seen Joey Logano do that.
All right, Jeffrey.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, Stenhouse Jr. top 10 is plus 200, which, again, I agree. I mean, I wish the number was like plus 250, plus 300. I think it would be a good bet. I think if you're going to bet Stenhouse, you probably just go to the top 5 market. It actually looks like better value at plus 750. And I think that's doable. I think that's very doable. So plus 750 for a top 5. I like that. Again, let's talk some long shot outright bets here. I mean, I think Chastain at plus 800 versus, getting Kyle Larson at plus 450. I don't mind that. I really don't mind getting a piece of Chastain at plus 800. I wish it was like plus 1,000, but I'll take the plus 800. And then for more of like we mentioned him, but Chris Bell at plus 2,000. We've seen drivers cut, like, again, 12 different winners this year. I mean, there's just as good a chance at this point that, someone at plus 2,000, a guy like Daniel Suarez at plus 3,000 this week. I'm not saying you need to go back and bet him, but I think Bell at plus 2,000 is just fine. You could even look to maybe a little bit further down, but if I was taking one driver in that range, it would definitely be Chris Bell for an outright. I just think with the way NASCAR is going, maybe it's the cars, maybe it's the pit crews, I don't know, but we've seen a plenty of different winners, and I would think that this streak is probably going to keep going just with the way the season has gone.
All right, Jeff, so that's a no for you then. Like Larson and Busch as the favorites here for them to win outright.
I mean, it's just, with Larson, it just comes down to the price. It's just not good enough. And Busch is, I mean, again, like, I think there's a lot of money and sentiment on Busch, which sometimes I would rather fade that. I think Chastain, I wish his number was like closer to plus 1,000, but I think Chastain has been just as good, if not as consistent. So I'll take the slightly better odds on Chastain.
Yeah, so no on the favorites for you. Those numbers aren't good enough, Pierce?
No, I would go with Ryan Blaney. You look at Gateway and Texas, very similar tracks, and he ran well both.
All right. Good stuff. Pierce, hope you have a good weekend and reading some new books. Jeff, stick around because we are going to talk some best bets for the Travelers coming up. All right, what you're looking at here are scores through round one at the Travelers Championship, but things are changing right now because Patrick Cantlay, hey, Jeff, it seems like maybe you bet him a week too early there at the U.S. Open. So now 10 under, he's 4 under today. Harris English, T2 with KH Lee. Hardy, McElroy's there as well, and he doesn't even tee off till 1 o'clock. So, what have you seen? What have you seen through like one round here, and like your approach, I guess, to like betting the rest of the tournament? Like, if people are watching right now, like, how do I do this?
So, I mean, again, Patrick Cantlay's at 10 under, but like, let's not forget. I mean, Rory and Xander Schauffele are at 8 under and 7 under. They haven't even started their rounds yet. So the one thing that stands out to me about this tournament is this course playing way easier than it was last year, where the winner was at 13 under after 72 holes. So it does like lead you to a theory of like, and we've seen this at this event, guys come from way back to win this event. I think Dustin was like 8-9 shots back after round one in 2020. Bubba has won this event from like 5 shots down or something, going into the final round to shoot 62. There is a lot of live betting opportunity here. So Cantlay at 10, that's fine, but he's basically done his round. I would not be scared to look back at the guys who haven't started yet. Maybe they're at -5, maybe even -4. Cam Davis is a guy who comes to mind. Maybe the one good call I had this week. I know to start the round, he was around -4,000. Plus 4,000. Jeez, not -4,000. Don't bet him at -4,000. He's at plus 4,500 right now, Cam Davis. This is a player who could definitely go out and shoot 62. Like in one of the next 3 rounds. He looked really good in the first round, just missed a couple short putts. So I'm looking at guys like that are haven't started yet, still far back, and you're still getting good odds because this is a wide open event. I know Cantlay's great, and he's at -10 right now, but there's going to be some guys charging this afternoon. Absolutely.
Yeah, Samir here in studio, who's running one of the cameras, continues to call Scotty Scheffler a fraud.
Wow. Okay. I mean, look. He's only at -6. He's 4 shots back. That's pretty good. Look, would we be shocked if Scotty Scheffler cooled off with like a T18 this week? No, we wouldn't be. But, the one trend with Scotty Scheffler, and it's kind of been consistent, is he's just not like that fast a starter. It's not like he shoots like +3 in the first round, but even at the U.S. Open, like he was like a few shots back, and then he just got it going, and he just kept getting better and better. So, he's 4 under for his round today. If he got in at like -7 or something, and you were getting decent odds on Scotty Scheffler, it's not something I would necessarily hate. He's at plus 1,600, and he's 4 shots back right now. Now, again, I mentioned like McElroy and those guys haven't teed off, so you're going to maybe want to wait and see where Scheffler gets in and where those guys end up, but he's kind of made a habit out of coming from behind. So Scheffler, I don't know. I not really for me this week. I think I just expect like kind of a slow week, just because how often can a guy like finish second or first? But you're going to be getting some nice odds to take a shot on Scotty Scheffler shooting like a 62 on the weekend, which he's certainly capable of.
Yeah, where do you go here, guys? I know we're looking over the DK Sportsbook right now, but on Monday on your article on DK Nation, you picked Aaron Wise, right? So how you feeling about his chances at the round one here? Looking to hedge it all following in opening round 1 over.
I mean, Aaron Wise is pretty much just done for the week, if we're being dead honest. The trend with me has been, I wrote up Matthew Fitzpatrick at the Canadian Open, then he won the next week at the U.S. Open. I wrote up Patrick Cantlay at the U.S. Open, and now he's leading the event at the Travelers. So Aaron Wise, wherever his next start is, you're probably going to want to bet Aaron Wise and, just take the 1 week after approach. But no, it's been disappointing. I mean, he's not alone. Jordan Spieth obviously had a bit of a U.S. Open hangover. It's always tricky the week after the majors. You never know which guys are going to take that momentum and run with it and which guys are just going to be kind of exhausted. But Aaron Wise is definitely one of those guys who needed a week off.
Yeah.
Didn't take it, unfortunately, for me. So, again, I would be looking, in that 4-3 under range even right now if you're live betting. Matthew Neesmith is another name I'd throw out. Good young player, potentially capable of like a low round, but I don't know how. The other thing you have to think about with this board right now is how involved do you want to get when you're going up against the guys like Xander and Rory and Cantlay. So, it's a little bit tricky betting right now, but there's still some opportunity. Again, guys can get hot with the putter on this course and make up a ton of strokes quick.
All right, dude. Well, that's it. You know, Reed T. Fowler is at the Travelers today. Didn't tell a single soul. Didn't ask if any of us wanted to go. And I said, okay, if this is the last time I talk to you, I want you to know I love you. And he goes, well, I hope, Jeff Ulrich's going to be good enough for you the rest of the way. And he goes, spoiler alert, he's not. So,
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. Thanks so much, Jeff. Appreciate your help, dude. Thanks, everyone, for watching The Sweat all week long. We're back here Monday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Looking forward to having you here, and have a safe and fantastic weekend.
He's gotten really